Hi everyone, it's Geraldine with you again. In this video I thought I'd like to go through some things on the screen with you, in particular about maybe doing labels and things you can do with some of the built-in designs. We did have a request for labels, so I thought this might be a good opportunity to show you a few things you can do with some of the built-in. I do think that we tend to overlook some of the built-in designs at times, and some of them can be quite lovely. So you can write yourself some notes when you do things if you like them, or you could save them to the machine. So I'm going to firstly on this screen go to my edit screen, so I have a new page. Now if you don't have a new page, the design we're going to incorporate a floral design with a monogram. So this might be nice as a gift for somebody. We can include some lettering, and we can also play around with the resizing. Now in the favourites designs, if you don't have this on your screen, let me just go back, sorry. World of Embroidery, when you open your 15 you will see this screen for your built-in designs. If we go to the flower and scroll down and go to favourites, these for the most part are the designs that come with the 12,000. So this will work for 15s and 12s. Girls with 14, 500E, 11,000, you'll have different designs, but you can choose something that you have and do a similar thing. So for this one I'm going to choose the rose, and it comes up in the 140 by 140 hoop on here. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go to the edit screen and change my hoop size, and I think I'm just going to change it to the 23 hoop. Then I'm going to go to the rotate, and I can rotate by 45 degrees or 1. So I'm going to just put my stylus on the 1 and work this around, and I'm at about 313. I've rotated to the left, so I'm just going to say OK. Now when I'm working here, for the most part I do like to use the stylus when I'm moving things around. If you use the stylus, you will find that your design then, if you copy and paste, is in the same line. So rather than dragging it around like this, use your directional arrows. So I'm going to just put that back there. Now I want to rotate it a bit more. I think that'll be okay. And then move it across. Now the other thing to look at on your screen is when you've got a design selected, it does have a green bounding box. And to keep things straight, I'm keeping my green bounding box on one of the grid lines on the screen. Now this rose, on your panel here, on the 12, this is across the top, but you have the same things. Have a small square and a big square, which will resize the design. So I'm going to go into there, and then it asks me how much. Now it will only let me go up or down 20%. So for this I'm going to take it all the way down to 20%. And the reason it's 20% is you don't lose any quality of your stitching. It doesn't become too gappy, it doesn't become too dense. You still get a good quality design without the density. So I'm going to say okay, I'm gone 80% down, And now as I look at it, I want to rotate it a little bit more because I've changed the size. I want the stem to meet that center line, and my rose is going around. So I'm at about now 301. I'm going to say OK. Then we have an image on our edit screen of 2 pages, one on top of the other, which is copy. So I'm going to press that. Now nothing appears to have happened. So when you copy, it places another one directly on top of the previous one. So I always go to my mirror image, and you can see now I've flipped it. On the 12 you'll get a box that comes up here, and you get to choose which one you want and then just move it across. So I want this now to come across that green box so that the stems are lining up there at the bottom. So now with this one selected, I'm going to copy again, and this time I'm going back to the resize button. Now it's down 80%, so I'm going to up it to 110 and say OK. So because it was at 80, 100 took me back to the normal size, and the 10% is giving me a 10% bigger. And I'm just going to move that one across and up. So I want the stems here to still be aligned, but I am going to rotate a little bit more. Let's just do that and have a look. Might just rotate it a little bit more. So I'm at 69% rotate on this one, and I'm pretty happy with that. So you can see my large leaf is not covering the small rose on the inside, and I only have a little bit of overlap down here, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. So now what I'm going to do is copy and flip this large one over to the other side and use the arrows to walk it across. And then I'm watching the bottom here so that I get the same distance between the 2 stems on the bottom, and I'm pretty happy with that. So then I might like to add an initial to the inside. So I'm going back to my home screen, and I'm going into my ABC tab. Now across the top here I've got where I can choose all my different fonts. So for this one I'm going to choose Gallant. The next one is the orientation, so I want it going horizontal. I want this time a large font, and I want it to be capital. So this shows me uppercase, lowercase. Now I'm just going to choose an E, just the one letter, and say OK. And then and now it always brings it into the center, so I'm just going to move it down and place that in the center of my small rose section. So wherever you think it looks good, I'm going to just move it around a little bit. That looks pretty cool. So you can resize your lettering, but you do need to be a bit careful with resizing your lettering, because you don't want it to become gappy by making it too big. So if I were to go to resize, I have the same option here to resize 20% up or down. So now I have that. I think I might like to add a little bit more lettering. So I'm just going back to the home screen and going back into my text, and I'm going to choose a different font. I'm going to choose script, but this time I'm choosing small, so it's got S, M, L up here, so small, medium and large, and I've got the capitals are selected. These boxes here are spaces, so a large space and a slightly narrower space. So here I'm going to just type in a capital W, then go back to my lowercase and type with, and do a small space, then go back to my capitals and find my L, back to lowercase and type in with love, and then say OK. Now that comes in also in the center on top of the E. So I'm going to just walk it up so that it sits up the top there. Now I'm not really loving the black, so on my edit screen, if I scroll through, I can find the rainbow. When I select the rainbow now, it shows me it is black, but I could choose any of these other colors. So I think I'm just going to choose this blue, so that I'm going with the blue rose theme, and say OK. And now you'll see how my text is a blue color. I just zoom in. You can see there. Now I could change the colour of the E as well if we wanted to, just by selecting it, making sure it's got that, oh I can't while I'm zoomed in, let me just zoom back out. I'll go to zoom, back out, choose my E, go back to the rainbow, and I might choose the darker blue this time and say OK. So now my E is a blue. Now I want to go back to my with love, and once we have some text on the screen, you will get an ABC on a bendy line. So once I select this now, we get options to bend. So if I choose this one, which is arced up, it's going to make my lettering just bend ever so slightly. The next one puts it back, or it would bend it the other way. This spaces the letters apart, and this last one brings them closer together. Now, it won't let me bring them closer together simply because they're already as they come in the machine. So if I say OK, I might just move it up a little because I wanted it to arc between the roses. Now you could place this wherever you like, going back into my zoom so that you can see, and I could just move it to the left a little. So we've got with love up here between the flowers, and we've got our letter E here. So if I say OK and OK, it tells me the hoop size. It tells me here we have 22 colours, because it's seeing each of these flowers as one design. So on the colour list it will stitch out the green on one, it will do all of this flower, then all of this flower, then all of the next rows, then all of the next rows. So if I scroll down, you can see here, then the white, then the dark blue, then a lighter blue, then it will go over to do the other. So I'll just bring it back. Okay, turn this back on to see all of the design. So if I go back into my edit screen and as you scroll through, you'll see what looks like spools of cotton. So I've got red, blue, small, and then 2 large red, blue ones. When I select this, it says there's 1 of 3 pages. Now page 1 is going to involve these 2. And what it's going to do is group the colour of these 2 so that it puts those together. So it'll do all the light green, all the light green, all the dark green, all the dark green. And I'm going to say OK. So then the design goes into ready to sew mode, and now it tells me there's 7 colours. So the difference here is it's going to sew all the light green on both the roses, the second colour, all the dark greens, and so on. All the whites, all the blues, all the next blue, our letter E, and then our with love. So I think we started out with 21 or 22, so we've brought it down to 7. Now at this point, if you decided that you wanted something else in here, you might want some more words arced under here. You might want to put a date under here. The grouping of our colours will go back to the original number. So let me do that and show you. So if I go back into edit, here's our design. And let's say we wanted to add some more text. So if I go back here and go back to our text, we could put, I don't know, let's go back to, we're on script. Let's say this was a gift for somebody. You might put just for space you. And then OK. Now it's going to come back in the middle. It's going to walk it down. And I would probably, first of all, change the colour. So go back to our rainbow square and choose one of the blues, maybe this one on this end, and say OK. And then go back into our font that's showing the bend. And this time maybe we would tip it up on the sides like that. Now we could space it apart a little so that it spreads out that way. And I'll just say, yep, OK. And then you could walk it up into position. Now if I say OK, ready to sew, we have 22 colours. Because once we go back into our edit mode, even without adding more lettering, it is going to undo what we did to sort our colours. So we have to go back to edit, and your colour sorting has to be the last thing you do before you sew. So as I scroll down now, I go back to the spools of thread, select it. It tells me 1 of 3 windows, so it shows everything. This is the E, and this is. So these things will probably be grouped if I've chosen the same blue, but screen 1 is where the most. So that's what's highlighted. The other elements are greyed out. So it's going to group all of these elements. So all I do is say OK. And we're down to 7 colours. And if we look, we're back to where we were. So it's going to sew out all the greens, all the blues, and so on like it did before. So that's one way of creating something. For those of you that have the 15, and this is only for the 15, under our cotton spools there you have a coloured flower and a plain flower a similar size with no colour. Now again, this is applied as the last thing you do. If I touch this one, I get a message that says sew all layers without stopping to colour change. If I say OK, the design comes up. Although it says there's 22 colours, whatever colour you start with, it won't stop for a colour change. It will just sew the design completely in one colour. Now you can still do that even though you don't have that option on the other machine, say on the 12 or on the 11. And you will be surprised how lovely things can be all stitched out in the one colour rather than all the different colours that we have here. It's worth a shot, and sometimes if you're not sure about a design, if you were to stitch it out in one colour, it makes you look at the design rather than at the colours. Sometimes colour puts people off. You might not like blue roses, you might want to do them pink, and that's okay, you can do that too. But sometimes if you were to stitch it out just in all one colour, in a neutral colour, you will certainly look at the elements within the design differently. Now the same with this option. If I were to go back into edit, it will undo what just happened. If I say OK now, I'm still back to the 22 colours. So if I wanted to stitch this out at this point, because I've gone back to edit, I would need to colour sort again. So that's one way of doing some labels and to create something really interesting with what you've already got on your machine. So I'm going to just delete that because I don't need to keep it. It says unsaved designs will be erased, and I'll just say OK and X out of that window.